Hi, this is Joe with the Healing Tree. We offer natural wellness products for everyday living. And today our guest is Brandee Thunberg. And I'm excited to have her because she deals with transforming your mind and body. Now, Brandee is a healthy lifestyle architect who writes, speaks, and coaches on the subject of health and wellness. And she has coaching certifications from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, Dr. Sears Wellness Institute, and is in the process of becoming an internationally certified health coach. She's been trained by top health and wellness experts in the industry, such as Joel Fuhrman, Ariana Huffington, Dr. Andrew Weil, Dr. Bill Sears, and many others. Now, Brandee is the best-selling author of the book, The Keys to a High-Performance Lifestyle, Your 5-Week Catalyst to an Even Healthier, More Successful You. Through her company, Sunshine Transformations, she has helped countless clients stop feeling unfulfilled and start making health a daily routine in their demanding business and personal life. So Brandee, welcome.
Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here and I'm so excited to share this time with you.
Yeah, same here. I mean, to me, transformation is a big word for myself. That's something that I always focus on, and how can I keep getting better and grow into the best version of myself that I can. And especially you focus on the mind and the body, two components that are very strong areas to focus on to create transformation. And I want to start off first, like, how did you get into this? Like what got you started?
Awesome question. So when I transitioning into the whole health coaching thing kind of became very organic through the story of my life. And when I was younger, I was sick a lot, unfortunately. A lot of like tummy aches, earaches, a lot of just things. By the age of 17, I had an ulcer. And then by the age of 21, I had like this dark cloud that just wouldn't go anywhere. I just didn't quite feel like myself. And, it was over 20 years ago. So it was at a time where talking about depression and sadness and anxiety, it was very different to talk about then than it is now. Now our culture is a little more open to having those discussions, at least with the younger generations, which is awesome. But I stepped up and I went to the doctor because I knew I needed something to change. I was graduating college. I was engaged to the man of my dreams. We've been married for almost 25 years now. And I had 13 companies looking to hire me. Like I should have been on top of the world. And I felt just sad and down. So I reached out trying to get some help and went to the doctor and, I started explaining to him how I was feeling and he laughed at me. He literally laughed. He's like, "You've got to be kidding. There's nothing wrong with you. You came in here smiling. You said hi to everybody. You're fine." And that was really disheartening to be that brave and take that step and then have someone laugh at you. It was hard at first, but it's probably the biggest blessing that I've had my entire life because I left there and things started coming together, that all of these things that had been happening throughout my life, everybody was putting a Band-Aid on. No one was really talking about what the cause was and how to really fix these things. And after getting laughed at, I realized I had to be my biggest advocate. If I wanted things to change, I had to figure out how to do it. And that's how I started my journey, really just starting to learn what worked for my body, what didn't work for my body. We're all so individual. And I think that's what's so beautiful about all of us, but being able to learn that what I was putting in my body, I wasn't necessarily eating bad, but certain things just didn't work for my body. And to be able to learn that some of it was food, some of it was the thoughts I was having, some of it had to do with moving and getting that exercise in, and starting to piece all of these things together. As I'm doing that, people are coming to me and they're asking, "How are you how are you handling, how did you fix this? How are you working on this? What worked for you? So I'd start sharing what I was doing. And then over time, as I had kids, and what are you doing with your kids? And it just became very organic, where one day I woke up and I'm like, why don't I just get certified so I know I'm really legit with the information I'm giving out, and then I can really make a bigger impact. So that's kind of how it all came about. Pretty organic, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting because most of the people that I've interviewed for this series, they say the same thing. They had issues, whether it was like personal issues in their lives or health-related issues. And that's how they came up and started to teach themselves, pull themselves out, and then coach others. Mm-hmm. So what is like a daily routine for you now? Like now that since back then you got yourself better, but what is it in terms of maintenance for you that helps keep you from preventing from getting sick again?
Got you. What's keeping me from backsliding? See, that's excellent. It really comes down to learning what works for you and making sure that becomes a part of your daily routine. So when I go to lay out my week, the first things that are going on there are my exercise routine. I'm an avid runner. I've been since I was 14. So I had movement going pretty good. In my journey, I just never realized the important role it was playing in staying consistent. And part of being able to stay consistent is committing to yourself and committing to getting that routine down. So I time block that in. Hey, this is my workout time. This is my meal prep time. And it just becomes I call them my non-negotiables. Like, these are the things that I need to do. And they don't feel like work. Because I know, especially like when clients start with me, they're like, oh my gosh, maybe it's just going to be too much. And then you realize that it's almost like staying where you're at starts to become harder than getting to where you want to be. So you're willing to make that commitment to yourself. And it doesn't have to take forever. My workouts are anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. That's what I do. That's what I enjoy. Unless I'm marathon training, then it's different. But I have clients I work with, we start out with 10, 15 minutes. That can make such a huge impact in someone's life and in someone's day. And it's such a small percentage. And watching someone commit to that is pretty cool. So I kind of take some of what I do and teach that to them, but it's really it's a part of just loving yourself, honoring yourself, and committing. Because if I'm not going to do those things, I'm not going to be at my best. And if I'm not at my best, that's not just for me. I have my kids, my husband, I have my clients. I have people that are relying on me to show up at 100%. And if that means that I need to go ahead on Sunday and spend an hour prepping some meals for the week to make me a rock star, then that's an hour well spent.
Well, yeah, that maintenance is, I think, is key for a lot of people to keep themselves going once they've made that shift. But I know a lot of us we're in this like go lifestyle, and sometimes people can fall off the wagon, so to speak. Yep. When that's happened to one of your clients, how do you help them get back on? Like, what is the structure that you put in place for them?
So we start out slow, and we talk about what the biggest goals are, and we begin with one, and we really start working towards that. And we work on creating those habits and systems that need to be in place to make that goal become as easy as brushing their teeth, where it's not so tedious. Now, it's going to happen. I have a client I've been working with, total rock star, everything, lost 40 pounds, got a hold of me yesterday. I did my weigh-in. This is what it was. And he slid back a couple of pounds. Okay, talk to me about what it was. And we were able to have this beautiful conversation where before I even finished asking the question, he said, this, and this went wrong. And this is what I need to change. And it was interesting because he said, you know, I would have never realized that years ago. He's like, I would have just kept staying in my rut and took it as a loss and got down on myself. He said, but you've got me asking different questions and I'm in a different mental place. And I know I've got this. Tomorrow's a new day. Everything's going to be okay. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Because he knows today he wakes up, he gets everything back into place. And we can sit here and we can focus on, oh my gosh, I messed up. Oh my gosh. And we can beat ourselves up. That negative voice in our head always wants to get the best of us. And sometimes we let it. And those things that we or others have told us for so long just keep coming up and keep coming up. And it's easy to throw in the towel at that first slide and say, I'm no good. I'm stupid. I didn't handle this right. I'm never going to accomplish this. It is so easy to do that at the first little landslide. So it's teaching people how to understand life isn't like this. Life isn't even like this. You gotta figure out how to make everything work. You're going to have the ups, you're going to have the downs. But if you get those habits and those systems in place, then the ups and the downs are so much easier to handle. And you know exactly what to do to get right back on.
Well, since we're getting into some of your process now, I say let's get right into it. I know you have a 4-pillar system. So can you start to talk about that?
Sure. So as I was having my own journey, I was pulling out these key things that were important. And I realized there was 4 key things that really created a holistic, healthy lifestyle, and one that would allow sustainability. And where I can save people a lot of time and money is I did the process backwards. I took each one completely backwards and realized, wow, had I done that one first, this would have been a lot easier. But it was all part of my process. So I have my 4 pillars, and they're mindset, self-care, nourishment, and movement. And if we can get you to focus on where you're at with those 4 things and where you need to grow, and we do also celebrate where you are. There's something beautiful about the things. There's no one that's come to me that is not doing something amazing in some of these areas. So we celebrate that. And then we look at some of the ones that are lacking. We talk about why. And we'll start with, of course, what I call laying the foundation. And we're going to go through your why and your goals. And we're going to really talk about what those things are. Then we're going to dive into mindset. And that's first, because anything that you're really dealing with and struggling with is truly going to come back to your mindset. And that's a little difficult for some people to digest. Like, no, I've been trying to lose weight my whole life. I just can't do it. But when we really start to talk about the nitty-gritty and the why behind the struggle, a lot of times there is this underlying mindset that we need to adjust. And that's why we try to work through that first. So we get a really good idea. And like in the book, there's an assessment. Each section starts with an assessment, so you can see what you're good at and see what you need a little bit of work on. And it really helps to create the opportunity to have those thoughts. Then books also set up like a journal. So it's very interactive. I did not want to just give information. I don't know about you, Joe, but if I read something and I don't really interact with it, it's like, yeah, that was cool. And like the next day, I'm like, what was that about? And I didn't want this to be another thing that someone got through part of and they put on their shelf. I wanted to be able to make that impact because I know what's in here can really create that transformation. So there's a lot of interacting with the knowledge that happens. But when you're talking mindset, you're talking like self-worth, positive thoughts. You have to talk about choices, actions, and habits. I mean, habits don't just really, it feels like they just happen, but it's because we've made certain choices and actions that create that result. Like we brush our teeth every day. That is a habit that we don't even think about. It's just very natural. So how can we get some of that natural habit forming to come into play with some of these other things? And how do we take some of these set habits that aren't working for us and shift them to the way that they need to be so that they can begin reflecting the transformation, the life, the health that we want?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying regarding when you read a book, and if you're not engaging with it, that the information just passes you by, and it's hard to recall. Because I've read something where it says if you go to a seminar, you read a book, you will retain only about 20% of it after 1 week. And after the second week, you'll retain maybe like 10% of it or 5% of it, unless you took notes and you wrote things down. So if your book is one where it's interactive and they're writing down along the way and engaging with it, I think that's great. That's a big plus, you know. But in terms of the negative critic, that self-talk, you know, so what are people saying to themselves when you're working with them? What's like the number 1, 2, or 3 thing that people negatively say to themselves, and how do you help them overcome that and turn it around?
So a lot of what's being said really can be categorized into self-worth. And there's a lot of people, they'll say things like, I don't deserve this, you know, and it's something positive, or I do deserve this and it's something negative. Or you'll hear a lot of, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I can't get this right, I knew this was going to happen, I wasn't going to get this job. It's a lot of that negative pulling apart. But then when you start to ask, like, well, why did you feel like you weren't going to get the job? And you start asking those questions and you're pulling out that information. And it really comes down to, well, I didn't think I was worth it. I didn't think I deserved it. Well, why not? Why did that person deserve it and not you? Why does that person deserve to lose the weight and not you? You know, and when you start having those conversations, you're able to start peeling back some of those layers that we've kind of built up over time. And, you know, regardless of where it came from, if it's from, you know, how you grew up or school or people you interacted with or, you know, people that you work with, things like that, it creates this whole mentality of, I'm not good enough. And that's where a lot of what I see, that's pretty much the brunt of what I'm seeing. And it's kind of heartbreaking because I don't feel like we were, you know, I don't feel like we were put here where someone's like, and you're going to fail and you're going to fail. And yeah, you're not getting that. And I feel like we were meant, you know, we're here for some pretty amazing things. So to know that sometimes it's just our mind that's keeping us from getting to where we need to be is, it's good and it's bad. It can really be overwhelming, but at the same time, it gives us the opportunity to make that change and that transformation. And when we start to make that transformation, it's like their little world that seemed like this big is now expanded, and they realize that they are capable of so much more. It's pretty beautiful to watch and experience for sure.
Well, and that can lead to self-sabotage, right? Because it's like if somebody says, I want to go do this thing over here, be on stage and speak with people. That's just a goal that they have in life. They want to share their knowledge. But they say, it's like, oh, I'm not good enough. I feel like I'm not good enough. And it's like a secondary voice that they may not be conscious about, right? or
Exactly.
someone who wants to lose weight, but they feel like they're not good enough to have the ideal body type that they want. So can you talk about that connection, how you, I guess, break that connection, and
Mhm.
or you merge them, and so they're going in the same direction that they want?
Yeah, so self-sabotage is perfect. It's exactly the way what it needs to be called. It's a little heavy in the sense of that's hard. Sometimes people are like, but I don't mean for this to happen. And it's like, well, consciously, no, but subconsciously, that's what's happening. And it's interesting because when it comes to like weight loss, you have to talk to people about their relationship with their food. And people are like, relationship with food? Yeah, let's talk about it. And you end up seeing a lot of emotional eating. So you have to go through, what are those emotions? What is that feeling that you're having that's causing you to create this environment where you're not nourishing your body properly or bringing in too many calories? And when you can start talking about what those emotions are and what response that is into, you can start creating an opportunity for them to have a different response that doesn't involve, reaching for the whole sleeve of Oreos or the whole tub of ice cream, which are things that I have experienced with my work. And to be able to get someone to pause and think about that to the nitty gritty and accept what's happening and get them to create a shift. And sometimes it takes a couple of weeks, to really like, okay, what we can try and replace with this behavior or this routine. I have a client right now, what's working for him is replacing it with movement. When he feels a certain way, he moves. That's not going to work for everybody, right? I mean, it's just not. And so part of the journey is figuring out what exactly is going to work for each individual when they come in. So getting real with exactly what's happening and then combating it creates such an opportunity for this transition to happen. And it's the key to begin combating some of that self-sabotage, at least with the weight loss. I see it in all different aspects with my work, but obviously very much so with the weight loss component as well.
Okay, so that's what a lot of people come to you for.
I get a little bit of everything. It's really interesting because they say you'll attract like what, like technically I would attract a lot of people that have been through things that I have been through, gut issues, the anxiety, the depression, things like that. So I do see that a lot, but I have had opportunities kind of across the board. It's really cool because these 4 pillars really are key to so much. So I've had someone come to me with their stress at work. Can you help me manage my stress at work? And I'm like, absolutely. And we were able to get them strategies and techniques. They haven't had a migraine in over a year and 2-3 months now. And I love it when I get a message from them and they're like, oh my gosh, use this technique. I feel so good about it. And I'm good. I'm not hanging on to it. I'm letting it go. But in that process, what was interesting is she said to me, she goes, I've lost 5 pounds. Now, this is someone that did not come to me for weight loss at all. And I said, mm-hmm. She's like, I feel really good. Uh-huh. She's like, do you think it might have been some of that mental weight? And I just kind of chuckled because what happens is when you start aligning things and you start getting that synergy in your body, everything else just starts to come together. She's like, I didn't realize, like, it was kind of cool to lose that 5 pounds. Like, I feel good. And but that's not what she came to me for. You know what I mean? It just was like kind of like a byproduct of it. And I had someone that, you know, specifically came to me for a movement plan, and we're working through some amazing mindset right now that has also created amazing nourishment opportunities and self-care. So it's pretty neat to watch the whole system work and work so well. It's definitely something pretty amazing, something I'm so thankful to be able to share.
Okay, so it's a wide variety of people who come to you with
Yeah.
different issues.
Yeah.
So what about the bad habits? You know, everybody has bad habits, you know, and it could be from working too much, eating too much, all sorts of things, you know. So what kind of bad habits are people coming to you with, and how do you help them turn it into good habits?
Um, that's an awesome question. I see all kind of habits. A lot of them, I would say, really, there's a lot of people that have no idea what self-care is, and they find it to be incredibly selfish. So yes, I get people that come to me with not much of a movement plan or really interesting eating habits, you know, different ways to nourish their body that creates a self-sabotage and interesting mindset. But when it comes to self-care, I see some really interesting habits in there based upon someone's view of what self-care is, because we live in a society where we are taught we need to take care of everyone else and we come last. So that seems to be an area that a lot of people struggle with changing habits. Getting people to read labels and think about what they're putting in their body and understand whole foods is a little easier because we know there's good foods and bad foods. But when it comes to self-care, I see some really interesting things there, because when I start talking to people about the importance of sleep, and they're like, I have kids, I don't have time to sleep. And it's like, but honey, you need to rest. And when our body's sleeping, a lot of people don't realize it's rejuvenating, it's healing itself. It's not just giving us more energy, but there's so many things that are happening that are keeping us healthy. So when we try to break through that, that's probably what I see as one of the tougher areas to break through, because it is so, it's this whole mental barrier of I can't put me first. But when you explain to somebody that 30% of their day, or 30 minutes of their day, is 2% of their day, and of course they'll check the math, and they'll check the math, and it's like 30 minutes is 2%. Are you worth 2% of your day? Like, Joe, aren't you worth 2% of your day? Like, go ahead and give the rest of it to everybody else, but keep 2% for you. And in that 30 minutes, I mean, you could honestly spend, I don't know, 15 minutes exercising, 10 minutes getting a meal together, and you still have 5 minutes to sit down, regroup, and have a thought, you know, relax. Like, there's so many ways you can lay out those, you know, those opportunities, split it up throughout the day, but giving yourself that time. And then when I talk to people about, like, well, what's your rejuvenation routine? And they're like, what? Well, what do you do to regroup? What do you do to get everything set back into place and recharge? And they're like, what do you mean? So there's a lot of habits tied to that come from almost like our cultural belief of others first, us last. But it's just like on the airplane. Like, if I'm on an airplane and I don't put my oxygen mask on first, at some point I'm not helping anybody. So, but that's hard. I think that's the hardest, I'd say the hardest area, with some really interesting habits to navigate. And when people really start to take that time, and even just in small increments, and they realize how much better they feel and how much better they get to show up in every role of their life, they realize it starts to become a non-negotiable. Because not only can they show up better for their family, but they can show up better for their business or their place of employment.
Why do you find that it's seen as selfish? You know, that's a big thing that I've heard from, even from someone else that I interviewed, who she calls herself a self-care coach. So why is that?
I really think it is a stronger cultural base where we're taught to take care of others. And I think a lot of us were raised in environments where we watched our parents take care of everything else and not necessarily do a great job of taking care of themselves. Like if I said something to my mom about self-care, you know, you want me to what? Like I had 4 kids. What? You know, and it's interesting. I'm not sure she knew what self-care was till she read my book. So I think that's part of it. And what happens is it creates this feeling where we're not comfortable. We have this society that, at least before coronavirus, was so go, 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 go. We had to cross the next thing off. We had to get to practice. We had to get this ready, have this report handed in. And it was like, what's next? What's next? What's next? So this idea of stepping back was like, I need to use that time for something more productive. I need to get something else off my list. So I think it's that merging of these different experiences that have created this almost selfish feeling.
But for some of the clients you work with, I mean, if they're the type that is always on the go and they create lists, I'm assuming that you're able to have them just insert into their list, okay, this is the time for self-care. But what about the people who don't have that kind of structured lifestyle? Someone who is a stay-at-home mom with 1 or more kids, and that just tends to go by the wayside because they're not living in a as structured of a life as someone else who's working in a job. So what would you tell
Right.
the 2 different types of people to help them?
Yeah. So there are 2 different types of structures. The people that have the list, I still have to work with them on exactly what's on that list. What are your priorities? What should you be saying yes to? What do you need to say no to? What can you delegate? So because that's a whole other situation in itself. And a lot of times that comes with perfectionistic tendencies. So there's certain things to work through, but I get the other gamut as well, where you have people that they don't work well with a list. One of my clients right now, he's not the kind of client that I can tell him, get out your app, write this down. Like his brain doesn't work that way. And this is where my 20 years of teaching experience comes in handy, because I've had the opportunity to learn different learning styles and see how people respond to them. So I get the opportunity to know pretty quickly the best way that people are going to respond and learn, and be able to meet them where they're at. There is no way I'm going to ask this client to create this hardcore list. We don't do that. But we start creating these habits that create almost like I don't want to say a virtual list, but like a daily list. You know, one of the things that he knows he'll be better with is getting up a little bit earlier and doing a couple of things right away. And that is one of the things that we're working on. So it's not down on his paper. Wake up by 6:30, do this, and that, you know, it's not listed there, but it's becoming a part of his habit. And we've been able to not only take the way that we're approaching things with our pillars here for his personal life, but we're also applying that to his business as well. He is an entrepreneur. He has his own company and was kind of getting worn out and kind of, and what I see this with entrepreneurs too, is sometimes there's a focus on things that aren't going to create that momentum or build that business. And we've got him thinking about what those things are and creating a system that he has been seeing for the past 10 weeks an increase in his business, where other businesses right now are not seeing an increase because of the pandemic that we're dealing with. So that's been pretty cool. But a lot of it has to do with meeting people where they're at and then working with what systems work for them. Like I have one client that works best if she puts her meals, like all of her movement, everything into an app, and then connects me to that. And then we're able to communicate about her plan in that way. And that's a system that she has in place that works for her. So it's kind of, I guess I just love how individual people are. So it's just neat to see how different things work. And by having these experiences with all these people, when someone comes to me and I see their style, it's pretty easy for me to say, hey, what do you think about this, or this? Think about that. What might work for you? What do you think? And it's pretty awesome.
Well, but what about for that mother with the kids and the full family? What can they say to their spouse or their kids to help create more time for self-care?
So that's interesting. It's funny because I've had moms that I've coached that are the list makers and not the list makers. So it's pretty interesting. But when it comes to that self-care, we really look at their schedule and see when the best time that fits in. For some of my clients, it's getting up maybe 15 minutes earlier in the morning and having that quiet time before everything starts getting going. And for others, it's later in the evening. And some people they're just too exhausted to take that opportunity at the end of the day. And they know and respond better to that fresh morning mind. But then I have some people, they're like, nope, lunchtime. Some of them, they'll get their young ones kind of doing, and just regroup. Now, my moms and I've had dads too, but my families that have spouses, the support that they have is pretty incredible. And what's interesting is even though I'm coaching one, you start to watch transformation happen with the other. And that's one thing that I love about this is the ripple effect it creates. Because if I'm working with a mom or a dad and they're bringing those changes into the house, those kids are experiencing that as well. And those kids are learning what a holistic, healthy lifestyle looks like. And they're able to kind of create their healthy lifestyle as well. So I've watched spouses put that on their schedule where, honey, Friday night, your time. You know what I mean? Or honey, Sunday afternoon, you go fishing for a couple hours, if that's what you need to regroup. So it's just it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to watch the way that they work together. But it's about making it a priority. It's about realizing its importance and understanding that it's something that you need, not something that you want, but something that you need to make you a better you, a better mom, a better entrepreneur, a better business person, a better whatever your roles are.
Well, let's get into the third pillar now that you have, which is nourishment. Mm-hmm. And how important does that play in the transformation?
Yeah, so a lot of times we forget that our food is our fuel. Our food feeds our body right down to our cells. So if we're putting something in there where we can't read the ingredients on it, our body has no idea what to do with it. And it starts to wreak havoc, and things start to get stuck and inflamed and clogged. And what I like to do is create just an awareness with my clients, like, okay, what are whole foods? A lot of times I'll say whole foods are like, we don't have one of those here in town. And they think I'm talking about the store. And I'm like, okay, so let's take a step back. Whole foods are, and I explain they're real foods consumed as close to how they were created. So apples, oranges. I just harvested this morning. I harvest kale, celery, eggplant, all kind of good stuff out there. And we'll talk about that. And then we start to talk about this concept of empty calories. And I mean, when it comes to nourishment, obviously, how many calories we put in affects our weight, how we feel, things like that. We start talking about empty calories, and I love to work with my clients on not just focusing on what we're putting in our, like what's actually going in our body, but how it also makes you feel, and start to create that connection. And that's how you're really able to start to figure out, oh, I don't really like the way that's making me feel. And that creating that relationship with food where you start to understand what makes your body feel nourished and feel energized and feel good. It makes some of those decisions you have to make a lot easier. And it's sweet when I get the text that was like, so I totally was thinking about I had one last week. So I totally wanted the pizza, but I knew I'd eat like 6 slices and I wasn't gonna feel good. So instead I had a salad, and they snapshot me their salad. And it was like, that's pretty cool. And it gave us an opportunity to talk about that because we were just meeting 2 days, our scheduled appointment was 2 days later, and we were able to talk about that and that transformation. And they're like, yeah, I was able to have that moment where it was like that cheesy, saucy goodness of the pizza wasn't worth how I was going to feel for 2 days. That was their choice, and that was what was working and not working for their body. It's really neat to see that transformation, because a lot of times we don't think about our food. There's so many, like there's drive-throughs everywhere. People drive through, they pick up what they want, whatever you're feeling, they consume it. They don't have that relationship with their food. I don't have time to eat. Let me get something in my body quick and let me be done. And we forget that it is fuel for us, that it is nourishing our cells, our organs, our tissues. And, if you're going to clog it with greasy food, after a while, it's not going to be so happy with you. So it's just creating that understanding. It's a lot of just educating people and then creating that opportunity for them to grow and develop with the education that they're given. A lot of people don't even know how to read labels. So giving them the opportunity to understand what that looks like, or what additives and preservatives are.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people who will eat for their taste buds, versus eating for your body. And how do you, do you help people in that area? That's what I find a lot when people ask me, like, Joe, how do you stay healthy? How do you stay fit? Well, I try not to eat for this. I don't make this my focus, my tongue. And I consider the entire body and how the food will affect it, So how do you help people in that area? I guess make that connection, because there is a lot of disconnection with what people feel that they eat and how it affects their body.
Yeah, there is a lot of disconnection. So when I'm trying to work with people on creating that different relationship with their food, what happens is, yes, there's people that where they love their cheese and crackers, or, everyone has their certain foods, that they enjoy. And it's understanding where that sits in the whole scopes of things. How much are you consuming that? Is it all the time? Is it daily? And I also, and it's in the book as well, I have a chart of all of the whole foods by color. And I go through the chart with my clients and I'm like, all right, circle the ones that you'll eat, put stars next to the ones you'll try. And it's never failed yet. Because I've had some that are like, all right, we can try this. There's gonna be like 3 things. And by the time they're done, they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot I liked this. And what is that? Oh, I'll try this. And we've already created that expansion of options, and we begin bringing in, and I know this may sound very different for some people, but I don't work on like I wouldn't tell you, Joe, you are not eating that again. I would work with you on, Joe, what do you think is going to nourish your body? What do we want to try this week? What are we going to add in? Because when we start adding in, what starts happening? Other things start going away. If I'm going to work with you on, Joe, we need you to get hydrated. So, what's that look like for you? How much more water are we going to consume? If you're going to consume more water, you're going to be able to drink 4 cans of soda. At some point, something's going to give. So we're able to work through things a little more, I don't want to say gently, but realistically. Because here's the thing, if I said, Joe, you're not eating that, what are you going to be thinking about?
The pink elephant. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's all that's going to be on your mind.
Yeah,
right?
what I can't have, that's what's I'll be thinking
Yeah.
of. So I think that's great. You point people towards what's good for them. And it sounds like, for me, people already know what's good for them. You sat at a table with healthy drinks and then another table with unhealthy drinks. They already know, but it's almost like they can't help it. So how do you, well, it sounds like you've already gone over that, because to stop them from reaching for something that's unhealthy, you're asking them questions to engage their mind of what is healthy, what would nourish your body. I think that's fantastic. But let's get into the what you said about additives and preservatives, and what do they really do to the body?
Mm-hmm. Oh, they're linked to a variety, an incredibly large number of diseases, ailments. Your body doesn't know it makes sense for us to add things to food to preserve it, in a certain sense of we want things that don't go bad. But when you're doing it with man-made products, our body doesn't know how to break that down. When you're adding things to food, you're putting additives in it so it has a better texture or a better color. I don't think we need to talk about the food dye color. I'm sure you and most of your audience have heard about the links that has had to a variety of things. So what happens though is people don't realize how much of that is in their food. Some people don't even know what they are.
You're talking about the yellow number 5, all the red colors to enhance the look of it.
Yeah. In my book, there's actually the top 12 additives and preservatives that you're going to find in you're most likely to find in foods. And I have clients that they'll keep that on their phone. And when they're in the store, they're able to use that as a guide to really see what's happening in their food. And you have to be careful, because they get sneaky when they do these labels. They have learned that we read the first couple and might let the rest go. So if you break things down, so what's happening to make something look like it might have, say, less sugar in it, it might have 4 different kinds of sugar instead of 1. If it had 1 kind of sugar, they have to move it up on your label. So it might be the first or second ingredient. When they break it down to 4 and it's 4 smaller components, it falls in the part of your label where that quantity is. So if you don't know that these 4 funky things that you can't read really are all a sugar, you don't realize how much of that might be in there. And it's the same thing with our additives and our preservatives. But once we can start looking at the products and then realizing, okay, wait a second, so this has all of this in it, what alternatives can I look for? Now, if I told you 10, even 5 years ago to find an alternative, you'd probably be like, I might as well just go get a cardboard box. Because certain things just, we weren't where we're at now. And I really feel like it's because the market's changed. You have a lot more people that are learning more of these things, and they want to be healthy, and they want to, nourish their body and their family. So they're paying more attention. So I think the market realized they needed to have solutions, and we're able to have these products now that don't have the additives or the preservatives, or have natural additives and preservatives that our body knows what to do with, instead of these make pretend.
I think the term for me is hidden sugars.
Yeah.
Where it would list anything ending in OSE, like dextrose, sucrose, maltose. They're actually sugars. I mean, so how do you help people in terms of identifying those to avoid them?
Yeah, and it gets tricky. So you have to kind of know your words. Just like you said, a lot of it is based on the endings, but they also keep changing it. So you've really got to get to know your products. So, but in my program, we would also talk about relationships with sugar. How much sugar are you consuming? Like I had one client that came to me that was doing 8 cans of soda a day when they came to me. So
wow. Oh my God.
They're doing a visual where they could see physically how much soda was in each one was huge.
You mean how much sugar?
The simple fact of, okay, so this says it has this many grams. This is how much is in that one. Do you want me to measure out the 8? No. I'm thinking good thing because I don't know if I have enough sugar.
So you'll have a pile of sugar for them to visually.
In this case, I did, because I knew that this person was so visual that they would really benefit from this simple exercise. And we had the relationship where I knew that I could do that very easily. That's not something I would do on day one,
But because like you tailor to every individual.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like, based on how they like to learn, because we're all different type of learners, auditory, visual, tactile. But let's get into some of the other areas like carbs, fats, proteins. Can you go over each of those? And
what I do is I gently go over those with my clients and in the book to give a general education. So not being a dietitian or a nutritionist, I'm very careful to make sure I don't step on those roles, but I do feel like it's important that people understand carbs, fats, proteins, fiber, and how they affect their body. So like the low carb diets that people are doing, which by the way, there's nothing that I do that is a diet. It's not my word. Because it goes back to what we talked about. Like if I told you you couldn't have something, what's going to happen? It's your pink elephant. It's all you're going to think about.
Right.
So we work a little differently. But when it comes to carbs, people don't understand how Like it's the only fuel your brain works off of. If you don't give your body enough carbs, guess what's not going to work so well? And I don't know about you, but I think it's a pretty important thing that our brain works pretty good, right? So, it's understanding that relationship to carbs, and when we have too much, what happens with our body? What happens with the insulin? How do our cells react to that? And finding where that needs to be for us. When you're talking fats, I grew up at a time where it was no fat, low fat. It was the no fat, low fat craze, and fat was like a horrible word. But your body needs it. And if it doesn't get it, it's gonna be not happy with you, but you need to know what good fats are versus bad fats. That's the thing. But our standard American diet contains more fats that harm our body than help our body. So when you can start to understand what the good fats are and get those into your diet and understand the importance of fats, then you can build that stronger relationship with them. So it's really just creating that opportunity to educate so that people can figure out their system and not what they're hearing on the TV or what's the latest thing in their news feed. Or, I had one client, he had come to me because he and some friends had done keto together. And a bunch of his friends, they all lost some weight for the first few weeks, and a bunch of his friends were still losing weight and he wasn't. And he came to me and he's like, do you think you can help me? And I'm like, it depends. Are you ready to learn about you? Or are you learning about keto? Because if you want to continue with keto, then I'm not going to be your girl. I'm not your person. But if you're ready to learn about you, then absolutely, then, we can do this. But when you have these latest crazes and you have these people that are able to get results quickly, it's scary to me because they also need to be educated on what's happening and whether that truly is what's working for their body. And is that going to be sustainable? Are you going to be able to keep that? Is it giving you the habits that are going to create a sustainable, healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, I remember you mentioned to me before this interview that one person, the keto diet didn't work for him. While it worked for all of his friends, and he wanted to lose something like 50 pounds in 2 months. And you were saying, oh, well, that's just too drastic. I think you said you worked with him for 6 months and he lost about 60, 65 pounds, something like that. So he got to his goal, and it sounded like he got to it in a healthy way, not in a way that could damage his body. Because I've had people say like, oh, Joe, yeah, I went on this juice diet or something and they lost the weight, but it damaged them for the long term. And the doctor would say, like, you did this and it's permanent damage now. And now you have to live with this issue. And they're like, oh my God, I had no idea, So they're not going to somebody who's an expert or certified in the area. So, so that's great that you're there to help people with that. But I want to get into, let's go into the movement now, because you talk about something interesting, which is you don't talk about exercise, but you talk about movement for people. Well, why is that?
Well, when I say exercise, it already comes with a lot of preconceived notions for people. And usually what I find out is they're not good. It starts to become something where they're like, nope, don't want to do it. I don't feel like getting sweaty. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not, and like all of these things go up, all these walls. But that's not what it's about. It really is about moving your body. We were made to move. We weren't made to sit all day. And when I say movement, it's one, to me, more realistic of what we're talking about, but two, it allows that opportunity for no barriers so we can have that realistic conversation. And I love to talk to people about their relationship with movement. And I love to explain to them, like, the fact that the definition of movement does not say anything about something that makes you miserable. There's nothing in there that says, pick the activity you least like and do that for 30 minutes a day. Nothing about it. And with several clients now, I have seen this happen where they said, I don't know about this movement thing. This is going to be tough. I don't like running. I don't like biking. I don't like the gym. I like dancing, but that doesn't count. And I'm like, well, why doesn't it count? Well, because that's fun. And I'm like, are you like moving your body? Are you, like working up a sweat? And they're like, that's movement? Yeah, that's movement. That's movement. I have someone right now who 2 weeks ago, I wish you could have seen her face because it was priceless. She's like, I have been doing Zumba ever since this coronavirus got started, and I love it. She's like, you're so right. Like, this is exercise. Look at me. I feel fabulous. And like just lit up. And she's like, I feel like I lost so much time for something I could have done for so long that I enjoy, and it was just sweet to have that realization. It's like that light bulb went on. But Joe, life is supposed to be fun. Like, if it's not fun, why are we doing it? I love to run. That's my thing. It has lit me up. It makes me feel free. It's like my moving meditation. Not everybody likes to run. You say run, and there's people where they're going to really quickly walk the other way. But that's my thing. That's what I enjoy. And when you start to get people to figure out what it is that they really like to do, it's so easy to make time for it. Because it lights you up. It makes you feel good. So we start there. We start with what do you enjoy? And I have several different lists. And, we talk about the 3 different types of movement that your body wants. And we just we start with that one and then work in other things, as we need to. And it's pretty cool to watch what starts to happen. Movement isn't just a physical thing. It's also such a mental thing. And I feel like it like clears out space, and it opens up your mind a little bit more as well, because you get that opportunity to regroup, accomplish something, get a result, all thrown together, where you can't be anything but like, all right, cool. So it's just...
Yeah, it makes sense, because I was a runner for years, like over 10 years. But at some point, I lost the taste for it. I guess it started feeling too lonely. So then I went to the gym instead to do weightlifting, and the people around there in the gym helped fuel my workout, as opposed to running. It's just me on the street. So but I knew I needed to exercise. I knew I needed to exercise, so I just had to find something that I enjoyed since I was making that shift. But what are the 3 types of what you call movement that everybody needs? Because some people, they just do weights, or some people just run, or some people just do yoga.
Right. A lot of people will consider exercise, a lot of it, they associate cardio with, usually, biking, running. That's pretty easy for people to, link together. But we also need strength training, right? Our muscles actually weaken as we age. So we want to really make sure that we're keeping them strong. And it doesn't have to be this intense weight workout. It can be, but it could be a body weight workout that's going to do the same thing, just build that strength. And then the other one is our flexibility. That really helps us stretch out our muscles. Our muscles actually shrink as we age, so we want to really keep them flexible and keep them from tightening up too much, so that we can get, easily get that movement going. So it's cardio, our strength, and then our flexibility exercises.
But do you recommend people do that? Let's say it's their movement day. Should they do all three that day, or do you recommend they break it up so they do one day, one another day, and then a third day?
Typically break it up, but it also take into consideration what you enjoy the most. Like for my clients that like the dancing, then that's going to show up on their movement plan more than the strength and the flexibility might. Because that's going to keep them energized and focused and feeling good. And it makes the other stuff easier. But you also start to notice that as you're doing the strength and the flexibility, the dancing becomes easier. Just like I'm sure you've noticed with your running, when that was your season, you could do those things easier. And now that weightlifting is your season, running would probably be not as hard, than someone who's just getting off the couch and doesn't have any other movement.
I used to run for, I don't know how long, maybe 45 minutes. Now I struggle with 5 minutes when I run because I prefer the weights. And so,
it just doesn't light you up, and that's okay. It's not your season.
Well, do you have like any ideal times of the day for people to do this? Or is it all just based on their lifestyle?
It's really based on their lifestyle. For me, the morning is the best. I know that if it's on my plan in the morning, it's going to get accomplished. I love the way it makes me feel to start my day. But I have one client, lunchtime. He runs at lunchtime, and he has his own company, and he's able to work lunchtime so that slot works for him. Morning, he tried. Evening, he tried. Did not work. But the afternoon is perfect. And I have others that they love their evening workout. So it's really a matter of figuring out what works. If morning doesn't work for you and we're trying to fit that circle into the square, it's just going to be a constant battle that isn't going to feel right. And it's going to be very easy to not follow through with. So when we really look at the schedule and really get that into place where it needs to be, and especially if it's something you enjoy, it's so easy to have happen.
Now, for some people who are having trouble finding the joy in it, are you able to create any challenges for them so they can get into it?
Yes, actually, I have one client. We just finished an arm challenge, and before that we did a squat challenge, and which was cool because we were working in some other movements, and we brought in this challenge as well to keep it exciting. They really needed the opportunity to see themselves create that accomplishment. So at the end of 30 days, when we were able to do 250 squats, I mean, how can you not be like, I'm awesome. Like, I just rocked that. How cool is that? And that easily snowballs into other things as well. I have also done some online challenges with my groups that I have on my pages and things like that to just get people energized and excited and motivated, just kind of getting that inspiration going.
And then is there such a thing as too much? I mean, how much is too much? And how do people gauge that for themselves too?
Yeah, so there's people out there where their life revolves around their movement routine. Um, and I'm assuming, I guess, if you're in the Olympics or being sponsored by somebody and it's your job, that's one thing. Um, but you have to find that balance, and your body's going to tell you. Your body will let you know when it's like, man, I need a break. So you really want to pay attention before that. Um, I haven't had any clients where they've gone the other way, where movement has been too much. We found that beautiful spot, but I have seen it with fellow running friends of mine that worry me.
Well, I think we've covered your four pillars pretty
Mhm.
thoroughly. Were there any last things you wanted to share?
No, I am so thankful for this opportunity to be able to share. I mean, obviously, it's something that lights me up, and I'm so passionate about it. And I just love the opportunity to get some knowledge out there, inspire some people, get them thinking a little bit differently, and create that transformation. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for being a part of this. Yeah. I mean, that's our whole goal with this health expert series, is to share information for people so they can continually get better. So now, Brandee, how can people reach you?
So, Sunshine Transformations, which you see back here, is the name of my company. You can go to sunshinetransformations.com or Facebook and Instagram. You can find me at Sunshine Transformations as well. My book is on Amazon. You can see that right here and right here. Um, it is on Amazon if anyone is interested in that. And then I do have a separate Facebook group that I've started for people who have gotten the book as well, so that I can kind of like tap into little nuggets and get to know that community a little bit and inspire and help, beyond just the pages here. So definitely out there and then on the website, you can find, other ways to get a hold of me.
Well, that's it for our session. So, Brandee, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on here, taking the time. So.
Thank you, Joe. This was wonderful. It was a lot of fun.